Welcome to Vision Pros, the show all about spatial computing, visionOS, and getting work done on the Apple Vision Pro. I'm Tim Chatton, host of the show. Welcome back to another episode of Vision Pros. We are joined once again by Joseph Simpson, who's been on many past episodes, and we're going to dive into kind of just the development world that he's been diving into with visionOS 26 and a couple of his projects, and a lot of, I'm sure, tangents that we'll get into along the way. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can do so over at visionpros.fm/Patreon or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. With that, here's my discussion with Joseph. Enjoy. Welcome back to the podcast, Joseph.
Good morning. How's it going?
Going good, yeah. We're as we record this, pretty close to visionOS 26 coming out. You've had a full summer with it, and where do you want to start?
Yeah, so hopefully visionOS 26 will be coming out mid-September. It's been interesting, kind of, being a visionOS developer with kind of one foot in the rest of the Apple ecosystem, watching everybody else kind of freak out and have a really stressful summer with the new redesigns they're all going through, and like over here in visionOS land, it's like there's been little bugs here and there, but it's been a breeze.
Yeah, and I wonder if we'll get liquid glass next year, because as I use it more and more, it's not liquid glass, it's transparent, but it's not glass. There's no glass involved. No cuts, no dropping glass over here.
Yeah, so I don't think the super clear glass that they showed on the phone would ever really work in Vision Pro, but I do think the liquid effects themselves, the way that the materials morph in and out, I think that would be great on Vision Pro. But I think they would want to keep the frosted glass that they have here, but add that kind of those little liquid effects and the animations and things like that. I would love to see that. And also just like some of the other, like the containers that they introduced to group controls together, where you can see them kind of blob together and come apart. Like that would be really cool in Vision Pro. And they've got like features to make sure all the corner radiuses match up across all the different elements and thing. Like those those APIs don't currently work on Vision Pro, so I haven't gotten to play with any of them yet. But yeah, it's just fun. Like, there's always so much to learn over the course of the summer, and when we start out after WWDC, we end up with this huge list of like sessions to watch and features to check out, and as time goes on, you gotta like start to narrow that list down. Like I can't put every new feature into every app. Like what is actually useful for my use case, and it's always kind of fun to pick up your project again and use that as a lens to kind of go over all the new stuff and say, okay, well, here's the the 10 things I actually am going to need, or can, in some cases, like with Project Graveyard, a lot of stuff just became so much easier this year. I've pulled out more code than
Volumes has been really revamped as far as what you're able to do with those. Yeah. Volumes.
In visionOS 1 and 2, we couldn't really do SwiftUI presentations. And what I mean by that is like things like popovers or sheets, like value pickers, date pickers, things like that. They just didn't work inside the context of a volume. And when we tried, we would just get an error in Xcode, or like a warning in Xcode. So we ended up implementing a lot of workarounds, like having two things and like having the parent conditionally show the child to kind of fake it. So it was a lot of hacks and workarounds like that. And that's kind of what I did with the 1.0 version of Project Graveyard at launch. And it worked, but it was a terrible user experience. And I had done all that work in the simulator leading up to Apple Vision Pro. And when I got the device, I was like, oh, this is really bad. It just had a lot of usability problems. So when I did 2.0 last summer, I pulled out all of the UI out of the volume into a utility window. So the volume would be a little 3D scene where you can have, in this case, a pathetic little graveyard of your dead projects. And then that graveyard is full of 3D models of gravestones for each project. And the gravestone shows some text on the face of it using SwiftUI, but there's no like interface in the gravestones. So I pulled out all of like the editing controls and stuff like that into a second window. And that was it works. That's the version that's on the App Store now. It functions. I just don't love the experience because you're constantly moving back and forth between the two. Um, and it's just, I wanted to have more of like a small desk toy type of environment. And anytime you wanted to make a change to a material or edit some text on a gravestone, you had to open this other window, and we couldn't really tightly control the placement of that window. So it was just kind of all over the place. So this year with presentations and volumes, I was able to move a lot of that stuff back into the volume. I'm still working out some of the rough edges, but there is a new presentation component in Reality Kit that can present a Swift UI. It's kind of like an attachment, but
Mm-hmm.
with a kind of a popover effect above a given point. And you can dynamically kind of figure out where you want to position that relative to the tapped item. I have mine just appear directly above. And there's still limitations to that. You can't do everything, and I've reported quite a few bugs about it, but it's been able to let me phase out that utility window and put everything back into volume. So yeah, that part is really cool. And the other thing kind of related to that, not so much volume, but across visionOS is, in version 1 and 2, I learned a ton about gestures and how gestures work in Swift UI and Reality Kit together. And I probably wrote 20 blog posts about the topic. Like
Yeah.
you can really go deep into it. This year they introduced this new feature called manipulation, which users won't ever really notice the difference in most cases. But I was able to pull out hundreds of lines of code and replace it with like 10 lines of code.
Hmm.
That just does this one new feature that handles like moving things around, rotating them along any axis, scaling them. And the really cool part is like you can do it without being destructive. So I've got a new mode in the app called preview, essentially. It's like the default mode. When you pick up a gravestone, you can bring it all the way up to you, even outside of the volume. You can scale it up really big or make it really, really tiny. And then as soon as you release, it just snaps back to where it was. And so you don't have to worry about dropping it outside the volume or saving its transform kind of weird. And they've got so many features built into this manipulation thing. I was able to make a second version of it that handles the actual like rearranging the graveyard stuff. So you can toggle into this second mode, and then you can drag things around, resize them within certain constraints, rotate them along the y-axis. So it's kind of a subset of the manipulation feature. And then those changes are actually saved to your data store in real time. So that's how you like permanently move stuff around. So one API doing two things. And I wrapped up the code and put it in a blog post when I figured it out, and it was so short. I'm finding myself like, well, I got to say more about this because the code, like, there's almost nothing there. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to emphasize how little code is doing how much work. I just love that type of stuff.
I noticed Project Graveyard got featured on UploadVR, which is a fairly big site, at least in the VR space. Was that a surprise to you when it like popped up?
Yeah, so I was just being myself and sharing like a snarky post on Blue Sky over the weekend. Um, I can't remember the exact wording, but it's something along the lines of, I can't believe you weirdos don't have all of your dead projects memorialized in a tiny graveyard. It was a little bit longer than that, but
Yeah.
yeah. So Ian Hamilton saw that. Him and I followed each other for years back when we used to be on Twitter, and
Hmm.
so I've always just enjoyed his writing, and he's enjoyed my kind of snarky attitude, but also some of the stuff I've done in VR. And he saw that and wanted to talk more about it. They don't cover a ton of Vision Pro stuff because their audience is still largely,
It's
Quest. And,
gaming also
Mhm.
too. So they've covered, for instance, like the thing that lets you use your Vision Pro for PC VR gaming to a limited extent. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, but they're always looking for other stuff in Vision Pro to look at and think about. Ian in particular really does care about Vision Pro as a computing device,
Hmm.
not just as a gaming device. So he's doing a lot of work with it, and he's even doing interviews with it. We did a FaceTime, and just like persona FaceTime, and just kind
Hmm.
of walk through the volumes. I don't have SharePlay set up, so we had to kind of, he had a version on his end and I had a version on
I
my
see.
end.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, but it was
Nice.
pretty
Yeah.
cool. And he did that write up, and it's just kind of, it's a free app, so I'm not sure if I'll like benefit from it
Right.
in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah.
like a review or something, but it's just a fun thing to get out there. And a lot of people have, I've seen that and sent me ideas for it or other jokes to add, things like that. So
Yeah. Is SharePlay, I know that's been very promoted by Apple. Is that
Mhm.
something to look into with this new update, or does it
so
not make sense for like Project Graveyard, for instance?
so I've been thinking about that as well. From a feature standpoint, it's something that everybody wants, but and it depends on the data in the graveyard. Right now, Project Graveyard is built for your own data, for
Mm-hmm.
Tim to enter his own projects, assign years and captions, things like that, and that's stored in your iCloud using Swift data. I can take all that data and wrap it up into a JSON and send it to the other user, but should I? Like, how do I communicate to you that, hey, you're about to hand over all this information that may be private to you? So
Because
what I may want to do is,
does SharePlay it just be for that instance that it wouldn't be saved in that other user's account? It'd be viewable by
yeah,
them though, and all that stuff.
yeah, it would essentially be like opening a document and like just kind of like when we can in other documents in Vision Pro, I can open a
Mm-hmm.
note and SharePlay, and you can see the note, but you don't get the note. So that's what I
Right.
need to figure out is like, how do I give you this information without, how do I let you see this information without giving it to you?
Which I
Um,
think with the SharePlay kind of metaphor, I think most users understand when you're SharePlaying, they get to see what you're seeing, but they don't get to
mhm,
keep it.
mhm. But at the same time, on a technical level, I am sending the data to the other person. Like that's the only way I can reproduce the volume.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So like, so how do I?
But the
So
Vision, yeah, and at the same time, the Vision Pro is so locked down. Like it would be like on the Mac in other devices is like, how can I steal this data I'm sending? But the Vision Pro, it's like I feel that's
mhm.
a harder thing to do other than a crappy screenshot someone might do.
Yeah. So one of the ideas I had to solve this would be I can share the graveyard, the gravestone data, the positions and things, but not the actual text. So you could
Mm-hmm.
see the layout of my things and you could tap on things and ask me what they are and I can tell you about them.
I see. Yeah.
So kind of like a privacy mode, like,
Mm-hmm.
share everything or share in privacy mode, things like that. The other option is just have more than one container.
Yeah.
So we've got the kind of the private data, but we could also have like, hey, this is the shareable version or the collaborative version where you can invite people in your contacts list and that is kind of more explicitly like, hey, this is data that you're sharing with other people, kind of like when you share a note
Mm-hmm.
in Apple Notes. So yeah, I'm going to be doing some work with SharePlay from on StepInto.Vision later this fall. So once I get some demos out for there, then I'll kind of revisit putting it in Project Graveyard. But yeah, in the meantime, I'm kind of working on other features for Project Graveyard.
Yeah.
I want to do some decorations and accessories. I want, I want to add some, basically like kind of like an emote to each
Mm-hmm.
gravestone, where you can look at one and tap them, and it'll play a little sad violin or a sad trombone sound, or show some googly eyes, or particle effects playing a selected emoji. Just little things like that.
I was
And I
just
also thought about
thinking.
some ambient effects of like, what if you're not, what if you have the graveyard open, but you're not looking at it for a while?
Mm-hmm.
Like, could it just do something in the background? Like maybe all the graveyards or all the gravestones like get up and start walking around and
Mm-hmm.
bumping into each other.
Yeah. Anniversaries, is that something you ever considered implementing in some way, like of the 5-year anniversary, something weird
Mhm.
happens or something like that?
So I not in Project Graveyard. We don't actually have date fields in there.
Okay.
All three of the captions on the gravestone are just text fields. So
Yeah, yeah.
I use it for like name, year, and like a sub caption, but other
Mm-hmm.
people put something else in there.
Yeah.
So I'd have to actually add dates
Yeah,
there.
some metadata of each.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think the reason going all the way back to why I didn't do dates at the beginning is because of some of those presentation issues in version 1, I couldn't actually show a date picker. I was like, well, who needs a date?
Day Picker is now available, I assume, I hope,
Mm-hmm.
Apple.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, it's a fun project that, I work on maybe 10, 15 hours a year. Like I can't spend a ton of time on
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's free. It's obviously a very stupid idea.
Right.
I definitely have to
It's a good
prioritize other
place for
things.
you to test all the visionOS kind of AP.
In particularly volumes. Like to me, that's one of the most compelling parts of visionOS is being able to have a fully interactive 3D scene, the size of a shoebox essentially on my desk
Mm-hmm.
while I'm doing other things. I could have other 3D scenes from other apps or windows open while being in an immersive environment from Apple or in my office looking at widgets and stuff like that. Like I love that kind of I don't want to just be in one fully immersive VR thing at a
Mm-hmm.
time. Having everything there together is really awesome.
Anything to share about Looming Deadlines or Dark Spaces? I know those are less front and center for you.
Hmm. Looming Deadlines, I think last time we talked, I had kind of put the project on hiatus indefinitely, and I found myself still using it,
Mm-hmm.
even though I wasn't developing it. I was still using it in Vision Pro. So in April or May, I decided to dust it back off and start working on it again. And I'm still going to do that, but well, I think I'm still going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I changed the scope a little bit. Rather than trying to make it a visionOS app with all of the kind of jokes that I had talked about previously, I wanted to make it a visionOS app that also has a companion Mac app and iOS app. And I wanted to kind of lean into the affordances on each platform for showing kind of a persistent timer or countdown to an
Mm-hmm.
event. So on iOS, we could use live activities. You
Right.
say, pick a thing and say, add this to live activities and like track this thing over time. On macOS, it's really easy to do a floating window that just stays on top of everything else, and you
Mm-hmm.
can make it as big or small as you want. So things like that. And I made pretty good progress on getting it set up. I've got the data syncing working back and forth between all the devices, and I did some minimal customization. Like I picked a small color palette and made some mesh gradients based on those color palettes, and gave you a way to kind of edit and tweak them, but they all kind of look within the same design family. So I've got that stuff working, and I I was using Swift UI just like stock controls, and I got to the point where like I'm about to get into design territory, and this is right before WWDC. So I'm like, I'm not going to start tweaking the design yet. Like, I'm going to wait for that. So yeah, the idea was to set that aside, wait for the glass stuff, and then start working on it again. And I just haven't. There's been
Mm-hmm.
so much Vision OS stuff to do instead that like the idea of working on a Mac app right now, particularly I'm not running the Mac OS beta, so
Sure.
I don't want to install that, disrupt my other work. But I could be doing some of the work on the iPhone version, but it's just not as exciting to me as it used to be
Yeah. So
when.
you can work on visionOS 26 stuff without running the Mac beta. Is that
Mhm.
correct? Yeah. The Mac beta is only required for Mac apps.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
it's required for Mac apps, and it's also required to use some of the AI features in Xcode,
Okay.
but
Gotcha.
I can wait for those.
Okay. But yeah, there's a version of Xcode for the current OS that runs all the APIs for
Mhm.
the new stuff. Okay. Cool.
Yep. Yeah, it's been nice to be able to, build and run for visionOS 26 without having to sacrifice my computer.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I did that a couple years ago. I think in 2023, I was running the Mac betas from day one, and I definitely had to reformat my machine in the end of June. And yeah,
And then anything about Dark Spaces?
so Dark Spaces is also something I'm still working on. It is. It's been one of those projects that's hard to describe. It's less like my other projects. It is kind of a series of immersive spaces that I'm working on, and it's not in my typical genre of like snarky or funny apps.
Mm-hmm.
This is much more kind of a place to go and think. Some people call it a meditation app. I think of it more of like a place to think I don't want a place to go and like do breathing exercises. I want to go and just like
Mm-hmm.
have some abstract visual and audio stimuli and just like, I need to think deeply about a problem for 20, 30 minutes. Um, I've been working on that. I've got maybe a dozen different spaces at various stages of development. And I've been teaching myself Logic Pro to work on some of the soundscapes for the project.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it's a lot. It's a creativity based project, so I don't really have any deadlines. It's just kind of when I get something that I want to build, then I'll kind of drop what I'm doing and work on that. But my hope is to be able to get it to the point where I can release it, get it out there, and then release new scenes or experiences over time, almost like a blog post, but for immersive spaces. Like, hey, here's what's new this month. Um, so yeah, and I'm really leaning into just very dark scenes, very dark spaces, minimal light, almost no color, like lots of black, white, gray, uh, concrete materials, glass materials, Fresnel effects, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And just giving myself constraints on a small palette of materials and things like that. I'm using a lot of yeah, primitive geometry instead of custom 3D modeling stuff. And it's nice to have like almost like a finger paint level of palette available, and like
Mm-hmm.
what can I make out of this, and later on I'll expand that and make some more complicated scenes in Blender and bring them into Reality Composer Pro. But right now I'm really enjoying like the primitive aspect of this scene has a ton of cubes and they don't all look like cubes, but they're all cubes, things like that.
Widgets. That's something big to visionOS this year. Do you
Hmm.
think these will be a huge hit for
I hope
developers?
so.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of the flagship feature of visionOS 26. I find them very useful. We don't even have apps shipping with them yet, unless you've
Mm-hmm.
got test flights. But just the ones that are there from Apple and the ones that are there from like compatible apps, they're so useful. I love
Yeah.
them. I have probably, I'm looking around for them, but I'm not wearing my headset. But I've got like 20 in this room
Yeah.
that are just doing different things. And yeah, I think they're fantastic. I've talked to some other people who are less enthusiastic. They kind of wrote them off as like, well, they're stupid. They can't do anything. Like they can't run code. They're not interactive. They're not real Vision
Yeah.
OS. And
You
I'm like, well,
can tap on them. I noticed my Love Supreme album artwork poster. You can tap on it
mhm.
to play and pause it, which is a very delightful
Yeah,
interaction.
yeah. So I did a series on StepInto.Vision about widgets for Vision OS, and just kind of went through not every aspect of widgets because it's a huge topic, and other people have written way better content on how to make widgets for Apple's platforms. But I wanted to touch on some of the highlights that are specific to Vision OS.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did, I think, 6 posts in that series and a summary article. And yeah, you can make things kind of interactive, but it's not interactive in the way that Vision OS developers are used to. It's kind of like a call and response process where you can tap a button in a widget that executes an app intent. The app intent does something to update the state of the widget, and then the widget is forced to re-render.
Like
So,
I
and then
imagine you
during
could
that,
do you could probably do a counter widget where you're like
mhm,
counting something that would function pretty well entirely in a widget.
yeah, yeah, I did a demo of that using the like a radio layout from Apple, where I just you just have an emoji selected, and you can hit plus and minus buttons to add a number of emoji to a ring, and you can see them animate in. But it's not animating. It's not actually animating in real time. What it's doing is every time you tap the button, it's updating the count. The widget redraws, and then when a widget re-renders, it's got a very short period of time in which it can perform animations. So it's kind of animating this it's not animating all of the emoji from point A to point B. It's animating the two versions of the widget, one from the next. So it looks very similar, but there is differences of like how we think about the stuff. So if you just go and throw in a ton of Swift UI animation code into your widget, it's not going to do anything. Like it just won't run. It'll run out of that short time and just sit there and be static. And then there's other ways of like requesting the widget to update along certain time intervals.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a clock I don't know why I'm pointing at it, but I've
Yes.
got a clock on mine with the second hand, and I have the app intent set up to re-render the thing every second, but I can request that from visionOS, but ultimately visionOS decides when it needs to throttle that for performance. So there are limitations to stuff like that.
Do you think Apple's using something different from what that is for their clock, where it is a very graceful every second thing it's doing its thing?
Yeah, so there is another way of doing this specifically for countdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they have a modifier in Swift UI where you can display time as a timer, and then we'll update that view every second. That will work in a widget, and I believe that's what Apple's doing in their version of the clock.
Okay.
But I'm actually going to write a post on the developer forum to see, like, I know that this is what you're doing in yours, but this kind of doesn't break anything, but it doesn't seem like an officially supported way of doing things. But I've also seen it in other apps. So I'm curious what their position is. Like, should you actually do this in your widgets? Is this going to be sustainable long term? Yeah, and for that post, I might do kind of a jokey version of that, where you've got to have a text view counting down the seconds to be able to get the updates every second. So I thought about, I want a clock with the second hand rotating. What if I make the text field to show the seconds, but then I stretch it out into the shape of the second hand and just make it rotate? So, like, yeah, there's a text view there. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. The one category of apps that is probably scared by widgets are all these photo apps that are like faking a window to the outside world kind of thing. There's so many of these really well done full apps. That's
Yeah.
what they do. And now like Apple's Photos app has widgets for that. I'm sure this will be a common category of widgets. And
Yeah. Yeah, I've got the panorama one. I've got an office window
mm-hmm.
that basically points at my neighbor's fence, so I don't really have much of a view. So I put a panorama there with a much better view. Now I've
Nice. Yeah.
so yeah, the photo widget has been great. I don't have a ton of spatial captures, but just being able to have the regular photo widget pointed at my favorites library. I've revisited more photos this summer than I have in like the last 5 years. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just, I walk in the living room and look above the TV, like, oh, there's that, that concert I went to.
Yeah.
I just love stuff like that.
Yeah, the one downside with widgets, there's not really a good way to solve this, but like if you use the Vision Pro when it's very, very dark, they just don't show up really. And
Oh, really?
it's at a point where I think they've forgotten where they used to be, like, because I use it in dark so often.
Yeah, I will occasionally, like, if I have to reboot the headset, I will see all the widgets pop in, but they won't be where they're supposed to be. They'll be
Yeah.
like maybe 2 feet away from the wall or facing the wrong direction. And then, after a couple seconds, the headset's like, oh, I see the walls. Let me snap everything back.
Yeah.
It is so, widgets can be snapped to walls. We can also snap windows to walls. And there's a difference in behavior between the two, where when you go into an immersive environment, a system environment, all your widgets disappear, but your windows still show, which I think is weird. Like, I want my non-snapped windows to show, but the snapped ones, I can be like in my office.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some windows snapped in the corner over here. I go into immersive space and I look over in White Sands and there's just two windows, obviously, hanging in a corner, but you don't see any wall or anything. And it just looks kind
I
of,
didn't realize that because I don't do the window snapping that much. I use it for widgets, obviously, but I didn't.
Mhm.
I didn't realize that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it can look kind of funny.
Yeah, that's good to know, I guess, if you need a window in a fully immersive.
Hmm.
Does that happen
So
like in the movie theater environment with the Apple TV app too?
hmm Yeah.
Are they interactable, those windows?
Actually, I don't know if it happens in the Apple TV app. It does happen in those environments, but I
Yeah.
think they might like present an immersive space that would hide all the windows
Oh, okay.
in that one.
But in most, yeah. And then they're interactable when you're in those spaces that you see them?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, window snapping is great because it will survive, leaving the room and coming back. You take the headset off for the day, you come back, your windows are still there in the same place. And you can do volumes too. You can snap windows to walls, and you can snap volumes to floors and desks and tables and things like that. I do have a feedback for them. I want them to be able to snap volumes to the ceiling, so you could have like
So then hang
chandelier
down.
type of things.
Yeah.
There'd be a whole genre of apps, like incredibly gaudy chandeliers for Vision Pro.
Right. Yeah. That'd be cool. Yeah, I need to experiment more with volume snapping to like a desk or something.
The window snapping seems very accurate, and particularly like when the restoration happens, which is when you leave a room and come back, or when you put the headset on, or after a reboot, the window restoration is pretty accurate. You may see a little bit of sizing issues depending on how the user is sizing their windows, but they're generally always where I left them. Sometimes I might have to resize them a little bit. The volumes, they have some work to do. They're often where I left them, but they're often facing the wrong direction for some reason.
Yeah.
So they still got some bugs to fix with that stuff. So if I put Project Graveyard on my desk at like a specific angle facing me, and then I reboot the headset, Project Graveyard will be there, but it'll probably be facing a totally different direction. And I don't really have an idea of what to do with that yet, other than report bugs.
Well, let's see. What else in visionOS 26?
So some of the other stuff that's kind of notable to me is Apple really expanded the options for immersive media playback. They've got the couple of formats that they're promoting, the spatial capture that we can do on the phone and with the headset, and also the Apple Immersive Video, which is that super high-end, super high-quality format. But this year they also added, visionOS level support for 160 or 180, 360 video, action cameras, and even the ability for regular flat videos to be able to change their aspect ratio in real time, like per frame. So
I
you could
saw
see
that,
a
which
video.
is pretty cool. So, like an IMAX movie could seamlessly go back and forth between aspect ratios if it needed to now.
Yeah, which is awesome. Like you can tell some really interesting stories that way. If you're, making a documentary and capturing footage with lots of different cameras, and you don't want to just have letterbox bars all over the place.
Yeah,
Like
there's
why?
a fair amount of movies that, not a fair amount, but there's a couple movies I remember that were like, oh, this section's in 4:3 to like kind of capture some kind of mood, and then it goes back to widescreen. In the past, that means you're gonna be stuck with black bars of some sort in one of the modes, and that's not great. Yeah.
Yeah, so these features have been interesting. I haven't done much with them yet, but I've been talking to a lot of people working in that space. And it's interesting that they kind of took a really balanced approach with all these features. They built it into their media player, and all of these features can do things like stream content. So you're using essentially the same media player to present lots of different types of media. You can seamlessly switch between them. You can stream content from them. And then they even built a lot of the stuff into Safari as well. So we should, in theory, see a lot of video experiences available for Vision Pro without needing to make an app. You could have a website, or there'll probably be some video platforms emerge to serve this type of content. And maybe even YouTube will add support for it eventually. I know that YouTube already has pretty good support for 180 and 360 videos, but I'm not sure how compatible it is with Safari yet.
Are
But
you
yeah,
tempted to get a camera to shoot any of that stuff?
no, I'm tempted to make as many connections as I can to people who know how to hold a camera.
Yes, fair.
Yeah, particularly that crazy Blackmagic one. Like, I don't want to be within 100 yards of that while it's outside of a Pelican case. Like, because I will probably have some kind of Mr. Bean level episode where I end up destroying it and causing it, a plane crash or something.
Sure, yeah.
No thanks.
Any thoughts on the controllers or the Muse or anything like that?
So controllers are going to be neat. I know a couple people who are adding support to their apps. It'll be a nice value add, but I think it's hard for developers to invest a lot of time making controller-based experiences when the controllers don't ship with the device.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing we saw in Apple TV, where your app, for a long time, your app could support controllers, but it had to support the Apple TV remote. They eventually lifted that, where you could set, make an app and list it in the store and it says required controllers. But it is kind of a different calculus for developers to say, I can target all Vision Pro users, or I can target the subset who has these third-party controllers that are currently hard to
The
get.
100 people that might.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious. Surely they'll announce pricing and availability in September of those things.
Yeah.
And it seems like mostly for games. Like, I don't see normal apps that aren't games supporting controllers in any huge ways, or do you see that differently?
I definitely see there's a lot of possibilities there.
Okay.
You can, one really nice thing is you can have one controller and use hand tracking with the other hand, and you can switch back and forth like that.
Okay.
So this could be really good for design tools, art tools, things like that, where you need a lot more precision than hand tracking can offer when you're moving in space, or you just need a lot more options. The controllers have a ton of buttons that you could use to show menus and cycle through things without that kind of, little bit of cognitive delay of like look intently at something and tap. So I think you're going to see it in creative tools a lot as well.
Okay.
And then the Muse is also really interesting. I had the Oculus version of this product, which is Logitech Ink, and it's just a really cool device. It is sold as a stylus, but it feels like a magic wand. And
you know what needs to happen? There needs to be some wizarding game that uses the Muse.
Yeah, there's a couple popular ones on other platforms, so I wonder if this will get them to port it over here. Thrasher on Vision Pro is this really cool game that came out maybe about a year ago, and you can play it with eye tracking and pinch, but you can when I tried it on Quest, you could play it with the Logitech Ink as kind of like a laser pointer type of thing. Really cool, really, really accurate in space. So yeah, the Muse will be interesting. I need to see if anybody at Logitech will send me one so I can do some articles about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to get one at one point in time. Hopefully we'll find out in September when that's coming too, because that one I'm actually more excited about. I already have the controllers because I already had the headset for PlayStation. The Muse, you can actually put that in your bag pretty easily, I'd imagine, versus those controllers being kind of unwieldy to transport.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be bigger than people expect. I think people are thinking, oh, it's Apple Pencil-like device. It's like 3 or 4 Apple Pencils. Like,
sure, but it's still a stick versus a ball, so to speak, with the controllers. Yeah.
So the other thing that's neat that they added, this is kind of a value add feature. It's not super important, but I love it, is these website environments in Safari. So web developers can add a USDZ file to their website and add a specific meta tag. The UI to show this is kind of not great. Hopefully Apple will make some improvements to Safari. But when you show this environment, it just loads it around you like an immersive space, but you keep your web page open. So you could be, their example was a Severance landing page where you were in the office, in the Severance office.
And this is different from immersive reading or whatever, spatial browsing. It's different.
Yeah, the spatial browsing needs a lot of work. It is currently a super low contrast, hazy, gray experience.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it right now.
Yeah, and it removes reader mode. So, like, it's supposed to replace reader mode, but it's a very bad reader mode.
Yeah, and I love reader mode.
Yeah, the nice thing about the spatial browsing thing is it will automatically do the spatial conversion for photos as you're scrolling a web page.
Right.
So it's kind of cool for stuff like that, but it's not great to actually read web pages. And yeah, it is a separate feature. I don't know why. Maybe just different teams that didn't know about each other. It seems to me like the spatial reader mode and the environment should work together, but they currently are separate features. And the immersive mode or whatever, it has the top billing in the browser UI. The other one is like hidden behind a menu. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I wonder if we're going to see kind of like a cottage industry of 3D modelers creating bespoke scenes for people's websites. And,
Yeah.
is anybody else going to support this? Yeah,
Is it
I think so.
a format that the Quest would also support, or is it different enough where
I don't believe Quest uses USD. They use, in WebXR, we tend to use GLB or GLTF, which is
okay,
a kind
so
of competing
be
standard.
incompatible with yeah, this one. Okay.
But yeah, it's easy to make scenes that you can export as either one.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
there's options to convert one to the other,
Yeah.
so it's not insurmountable.
Any for StepInto.Vision, are you thinking of adding one just for fun?
Yeah, I added one already. It's very unimpressive. It's just like a dome with some lights in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely want to have um, a couple different ones, kind of specific
Mm-hmm.
to the type of content you're reading. So if you're in the example code section, have make it very code themed. Um, have some just different visual effects and things like that. Particles playing little code snippets, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But if you're in the lab, I want to have like lab tables and beakers and stuff like that. Um,
You mentioned the interface to is kind of bad for these environments. Like, what is that interface? Is it automatically throwing it up for you, or is it you
no,
selected someplace?
so in Safari on Vision Pro, on the right of the browser, you'll see the spatial browsing button.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't get you into these. On the
Right.
left of the browser, inside the URL bar, there's a little menu button, and you push that, and there's like the third or fourth option in that list.
Oh, okay.
So
The thing that would like
it's
for content blockers, turning those on and off would be in that list somewhere
yeah,
there.
or like you want to adjust the zoom ratio or things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Okay.
So it's just kind of buried. It should be where that other button is, in my opinion.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
or honestly, they've got so much room in Window Chrome and visionOS. Like put them both out there. Put them in a toolbar. Put them,
Yeah, because
on
it's
ornaments on the
something
side.
at least right now that's so rare that you want to kind of highlight when it's actually there.
Yeah.
So, StepInto.Vision launched about a year ago at this, or it's 2025 now, right? Yeah.
hmm Yep.
Yes, about a year ago, August, late August last year. How's the first year been going with that?
It's gone really well. Yeah, we launched August 24th last year. I think I had maybe 9 or 12 posts at the time covering just a few ideas. And then I kind of kept working on things throughout the fall. I spent some time working with windows and volumes and spaces and did a bunch of work on gestures. And towards the end of the year, I don't remember how many things I ended with at the end of the year, but I had done enough that it started to get attention. I started to get regular people on the site. I started to get invited to events and hackathons and things like that. And this year, for 2025, I decided to give myself an arbitrary goal of posting on the site every day of 2025. And so far, I'm keeping that streak alive. It has not been easy, but it's not been insurmountable either. Um,
Every
and so,
day means weekends too.
yeah,
Not a day off. Yeah.
yeah. So since launch, I've posted 130 different example code articles covering visionOS development, and 75 labs. I think the resource library is up to about 48 items, and I do a weekly newsletter on Friday. And so the resource library, to be perfectly honest, is kind of my escape hatch.
Yeah.
It is, this podcast is in there, and those are just short link posts of like, hey, this is something else that
I
visionOS
gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
developers should know
So
of.
I'll cover a
So
days of content. Yeah.
yeah, so when I'm basically exhausted and burned out, need a day off, like let me add a resource post. So,
Yes. Gotcha.
but yeah, the focus of the site has been the example codes. I've covered quite a lot of topics, but still not even 20% of what I want to cover. I have a page called Learn Vision OS that kind of serves as a table of contents for all the examples.
Mm-hmm.
And I've covered things. I've got a series called Spatial Swift UI that covers a lot of the the visionOS features in SwiftUI. RealityKit Basics will teach people about RealityKit and RealityView. I've got a whole series on system gestures that we can mostly throw out now that we have manipulation. And I actually updated a lot of those articles like, hey, this you can still do this, but there is a much better way that you should know about before you spend time on this. I've got a whole series on working with Windows and all the different advanced things you can do. I'm always trying to figure out how to emphasize these features in particular because visionOS has incredible features for managing windows and volumes. Not everything we want, but some really cool stuff. And it's not obvious to people. And you can tell that when you go to the App Store and everybody's just using the default behaviors, default window sizes, default presentation, things like that. There's a lot we can do. And I'm always trying to figure out how can I turn these items into flashier demos to get the point across to people that, hey, there's other ways to present this type of information. I've got a series on physics and collisions in RealityKit. I've got a bunch of ARKit demos, and I recently did a series on widgets. But there's still there's so much to do. There's way more things to cover in ARKit. I've never even touched audio. There's audio, there's ambient audio, there's spatial audio, there's sound effects, like all that stuff. There's a whole audio mixer built into Reality Composer Pro that I haven't documented yet. I haven't really touched on animations. There's an entire timeline and behavior system that I use pretty frequently, but I haven't written enough content about it yet. There is way more to talk about with physics on Vision Pro. Just so many, like I've got this huge backlog of stuff. I think at least 400 things currently on my list of things that I should write, which is funny because when I started this year with this daily plan, I'm like, I'm going to run out of ideas. I'm not going to have enough to get through the year. And every week I'm adding 10 new ideas of things to build. So I'm definitely not running out of steam anytime soon.
Good. Yeah, that's good to hear. That's exciting. Yeah, if you're a developer or just a developer curious, it's StepInto.Vision for the URL, which is lots of good resources there.
Yeah, and so one of the things we did this year is we started a kind of a weekly hangout called Office Hours. We did a couple early tests of it in December last year, and then we started it kind of full-time in February. So every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, a group of visionOS developers just hops on a Zoom call and hangs out for anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. And it started out with maybe half a dozen people, and now we're 20, 25 people every week. It got to the point where we had to make a Discord channel to be able to kind of organize things and share resources and things like that. So that is growing. The group itself is growing, but we're also using that as a place to kind of organize and help each other with projects, pitch each other ideas, form teams of developers to bid on projects, maybe even like form some companies, things like that. So there's a lot. StepInto.Vision is the free community resource, and there's a lot that I can do to facilitate this type of community, but I'm not necessarily like running it as, I'm not directing the community. I'm more just administering it. But we are adding a bunch of new stuff this year. I'm working on a YouTube channel. I particularly like to learn by reading articles, which is why I write articles, but I know that there's a whole other class of people who learn more from video. So I'm working on getting these concepts, particularly the example code. I want to get those drilled into relatively short, easy to watch videos that convey the same information, but to a different audience.
Gotcha. Nice. Yeah, and then the description would have the code or whatever. You'd link back to the website kind of thing from there.
Yep. And we're also working on a developer directory for StepInto.Vision where developers can list themselves, have a profile, show off some of their work, and how to get a hold of them if you want to hire them. So that'll be kind of phase one of this new community aspect of the site, the developer directory, and we're hoping to turn that into kind of a consultants network as well. I have a ton of people come to me with projects and, hey, can you build XYZ app? I'm like, well, I could build like 5% of that. but I don't know how to do any of the networking stuff, or I'm not a 3D modeler. I can't do that. Like, but if when I get those opportunities, if I can go to that network and say who's available for this project, who wants to sign on, and we can form a team and figure out, what company are we doing this under, and take on client work like that. So that is definitely something that we're going to be rolling out in the next couple of months. Yeah, and we've also got, I'm going to write an article about collaboration and volunteer opportunities. So StepInto.Vision doesn't pay me any money, so I don't have any money to pay anybody else.
Right.
But a lot of people have stepped up and offered content for the site. There's some people there's a friend working on an article on object tracking in ARKit. I just was talking with him yesterday. Another friend and I are going to do a SharePlay series together. So he's going to help me. Neither one of us have touched SharePlay yet, but we're both good developers. So it's going to be fun to learn SharePlay together while we're building a SharePlay thing together.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
And just kind of document that process. And he's a natural video maker, and I'm more of a natural writer. So I'm gonna cover it from the writing side, and he's gonna cover it from the video side, and things like that. So if anybody listening to this wants to write a guest article for the site or tackle any of the example code, work with me on any of that, or do you have resources for the resource library? Do you want to manage the resource library? Do you want to get involved with the developer directory? Do you want to get involved with the Discord? Things like that. There's a lot of volunteer opportunities that are going to be opening up this year. And there's just a lot of really exciting stuff going on. I'm not sure when this will go out.
This episode?
Mm-hmm.
It'll go out 2 weeks from today.
Okay. So
right around when visionOS 26 might launch. Let's see. Trying to look at the calendar here. But
okay. Yeah, so by then there'll be some articles on StepInto.Vision announcing some of the new stuff that we're doing. I'm excited to stop calling StepInto.Vision my project and open it up to a larger team of people.
Nice. Yeah. September 4th, this will be live.
Okay. I did have one bit of jokey but loving follow-up for you and Devin.
Yeah, what's that?
So you were joking like, should I be cleaning this thing? Yes, you should be cleaning this thing.
Yeah. Tell and instruct us. Yeah, those things go in the washing machine.
Apple. No, definitely don't throw it in the washing machine.
Okay, that'd break it right now.
Yeah, don't throw it in the dishwasher. Don't hose it off in the backyard. Apple has a document I can send you. I just threw it on Blue Sky and Mastodon this morning.
Yeah.
How to clean Apple Vision Pro and accessories. In particular, the one that you should focus on is the light seal cushion. The thing that actually touches your face.
Yeah.
You just take it off. Use some unscented detergent or soap.
Like Dawn.
Mix that with water.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just something unscented, and you just want to soak it in water for a little while, gently kind of massage it a little bit, and then squeeze it out and let it dry. I have 2 of those, so I can always have one clean, ready to go, and I switch them out every week.
And that's the piece that it magnetically comes off the bigger piece, right? That black piece that comes.
Yeah, so just the little foam part. You don't need to necessarily clean every part all the time, but
right, not the whole light seal itself.
Yeah. But yeah, I was listening to that part of the episode, and I'm like, I'm having flashbacks from people sharing headsets at conventions and getting skin rashes and bacterial infections. And yeah, those things can harbor a lot of
I can imagine. Stuff. Yeah, especially in the summer months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, like I wear sunscreen because I'm basically the shade of light mode in Apple Notes.
Sure, yeah.
So I need sunscreen.
All over the headset, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Clog it up.
That's a good note for sure. I will
clean your headsets, folks.
I will investigate. I will get that done at some point.
Yeah, I've got like a little Saturday morning ritual where I clean my headset, I clean my PSVR headset and controllers. I clean all my glasses with a little polishing cloth and clean the AirPods and the phone case and things like that. Just like little 10-minute ritual to tidy everything up.
I wonder how much nasty water I'll get from cleaning.
Yeah, you might want to throw that one away. Go get another one at the Apple Store.
Those are $29. How much are those?
Yeah, I think they're like $30.
Not bad. Yeah. And I forget that piece. There's different sizes to that piece, or is that just one piece for everyone?
There's measurements, and there's also the narrow and wide version. So whether or not how much cushion it has. The wide one doesn't work for me at all. I don't know why.
But that piece interacts with the full or light seal as far as the sizing. So it matches whatever you got for that.
Yeah, so I think there's, I don't know how many individual unique sizes of cushion there are, but a few.
Yes.
Like when you go to the Apple Store, they don't just have them on the shelf. You have to tell them the one you need.
It's like
a
14S or a 30. It's like, whoa. There's a lot of ones.
I've got mine written down in Apple Notes. Let's see. Because I can never remember it. I can also never remember my Apple Watch band size because I use the solo loop.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I'm like, which version of this do I use?
I love the solo loop, but they break after about a year for me, and I just was tired of since the band's breaking or getting way too loose.
Yeah, so my light seal is a M25W.
Okay.
I assume medium, but who knows?
Yeah, right. Yeah, what everything stands for. Well, where can folks follow you online? You mentioned Blue Sky and Mastodon, and then there's StepInto.Vision.
So I'm definitely the most active on Blue Sky and LinkedIn. StepInto.Vision as a brand now has social media accounts across the internet, including the crazy, chaotic ones. So if you're into that kind of thing, you can find us on X and Threads. We're launching a YouTube channel soon. We've got an Instagram. We've got a TikTok. We're not really posting there yet, but we will be. But in terms of, if you want to say something to me, LinkedIn and Blue Sky is the best way to get my attention. I'm very active in those two places. I tend to keep LinkedIn just about code and professional stuff, and then I will fill Blue Sky with my most unhinged thoughts and jokes and a lot more personality over there. So
cool. So yeah, I'll link to those in the show notes. And yeah, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's been great catching up, and yeah, it'll be an exciting year ahead with this new OS. And
definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Love a good rest of your day here.
You too.
Well, that's my discussion and interview with Joseph Simpson, all about StepInto.Vision and all that he's been up to over the summer. Make sure to check out him on Blue Sky and StepInto.Vision. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can do so over at visionpros.fm/Patreon or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. With that, I'll talk with everyone again real soon.